New Year's coming up this weekend, and we'll be talking everything 2022. But today, a lot of NFL talk as LSU dominated. Former LSU players dominated over the weekend. Joe Burrow set records. Justin Jefferson set records. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a giant game. Patrick Queen was all over the place. On and on and on. LSU majorly represented in the NFL over the weekend. We'll talk about that. Also, a big test for LSU basketball coming up on Wednesday. Major test, first biggest, toughest game of the year on the road at Auburn. Arguably one of the toughest places to play in all of the SEC. That will be this Wednesday night. So the undefeated LSU men's Tigers team will be in action on Wednesday night in a game that's going to be on ESPNU. And I'll tell you about the ticket prices for this thing, as it is a giant matchup. Also, the New Orleans Saints not getting any help from the NFL, as they've got over 20 players out for Monday Night Football, many coaches out as well. That is tonight. The Saints taking on the Miami Dolphins in a must-win, and they find themselves an underdog by a field goal at home, which is very rare that they're a dog against a team that they have the same record or better record, even at certain, they're both 7-7. Saints would never be an underdog if it wasn't for COVID. We'll get into that as well. Tommy Krysan alongside Ronnie Rance we're presented by LeBear's Casino. We were there last night, TK, over at LeBear's doing our radio show, a little Sunday night edition. Normally we do it on Saturday mornings, but due to Christmas, we're over there on Sunday night. And by the way, didn't do a breakfast sandwich review for the radio, so I'll say this. I got this and I kind of ate it on the way home. Get the blackened pork chops with red beans and rice and a little side of cornbread over at the Stadium Sports Bar and Grill. It's one of the specials for the month. It was very, very good. TK, how was your Christmas, man?
It was great, man. I was with my whole family, my son and his fiance, my daughter, son-in-law, and my 3 grandsons, and we have another grandchild on the way in July. So it's all about family for me, and that was a great day. A lot of fun, some old stories and, some new stories. So it was good.
Well, the last week when we talked to you, I was up in NYC on Tuesday doing the show live from Times Square, the old Dick Clark location, I guess. But so I had a great time, and got to get the Christmas spirit up in New York City with my mom and daughter, and then brought it in Lafayette with the family over there. So good times, definitely, and we'll be celebrating New Year's Eve this coming weekend at LeBear's Casino. They have a big New Year's Eve party, so if folks are trying to figure out plans, they should stop by there. Craig Schilling already chiming in, asking, did TK win the car last night at LeBear's Casino? He did not, by the way. It was a gentleman from the state of Texas who took home a brand new Lexus at our giveaway last night that we did at the end of the show at LeBear's Casino.
There was a lot of people there. I mean, I had that one ball in the hopper, and I had my fingers crossed, but Craig, it didn't work out, man. I was ready to win, man. I felt it. I was feeling good about it.
By the way, Craig, what is going on? You did not start Joe Burrow in your fantasy playoff matchup, and he scored 57 points. You sat him on the bench. Why would you not start Joe Burrow unless you have like Aaron Rodgers or something as another option? That's a bad decision by you, Craig. So let's talk about Joe Burrow, TK. We'll go there first. Over 500 yards passing. He sets the Cincinnati Bengals record that Boomer Esiason threw for 490, and Boomer did that in overtime, in the old school overtime when you had 15 minutes. So Joe Burrow shattered the old record. Dominated the Ravens, who've really been, for the most part, the cream of that league for the last about 5 years. Steelers probably have been the cream of that league for the most part overall, but last 3-4 years, the Ravens have been the team to beat, and they swept them this year.
Well, I watched that game. Bengals were one of my picks. I was on fire this weekend. I had the Colts Saturday night, the Bengals, and then the Cowboys last night. So I'm on fire. But, hey, I watched that game. Joe Burrow was incredible. 3rd highest all-time passing yardage in a single game in the NFL. And there's 2 guys tied for second. So, really, there's 3 names ahead of him, Sammy Baugh, and then Nolan Van Brocklin, Sammy Bond, and Warren Moon would be ahead of him. That's it. But I'll tell you, and Derry Beckwith and I talked about it last night on Sports Shows Radio, the accuracy that he had yesterday, hitting guys perfectly in stride, putting the ball in where they don't have to reach back for it or slow up that half a step to get it. It was unbelievable display of the quarterback position. He got hit a few times. He bounced around a little bit. I mean, he looked like a Pro Bowler, and there was a couple of underlying stories yesterday, Ronnie. The defensive coordinator of the Ravens made some comments that Joe Burrow admitted motivated him, and he's not in the Pro Bowl. Lamar Jackson is, and they swept the Ravens and the Steelers this year for the first time in like 15 years that the Bengals have done that. I don't know if the changing of the guards happening in the NFC North, but AFC North, but it might be. The Ravens, Steelers. Ravens a mess. Ben Roethlisberger's at the end of the story. So maybe Joe Burrow and then all those players he's got with him, and he spread the ball around like he did at LSU. He had 3 guys with over 100 yards receiving, and one of them was not Jamar Chase, yet Chase still was very effective. Joe Mixon is one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's catching balls out of the backfield. He's running hard. I mean, I know there's about 4 elite teams in the NFL right now. I guess Green Bay, Dallas, Tampa, and there's somebody else I was trying to think of that would be up there. But the way the Bengals played yesterday, offense and defense. Now, granted, Ravens had a journeyman quarterback out there. This guy that's been with 15 different teams. Can you believe that? But, wow, the Bengals look good, really good, and they've looked good for a while. And, man, I don't know if the changing of the guards happening in that division, but it might be. But tip your hat to Joe Burrow. His post-game comments were, right on. But the accuracy that he displayed and what he did to the Ravens twice this year is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, the Ravens went with 35-year-old quarterback Josh Johnson out of San Diego, where he went to college. I don't know. I think it is a change into the guard. The Bengals are probably a little bit ahead of schedule, Tommy. As bad as they were when Joe Burrow took over, they showed some signs of life last year. It made it exciting at times, but this year took a giant step. This is a playoff team, and with Burrow and Chase, and then they've added some other pieces right around them. I do believe that the Steelers are on the way down. I mean, we even had, as goofy as it sounds, we even had conversations about Mike Tomlin. Is he going to be the next coach at LSU? The fact that Mike Tomlin's even being discussed to leave Pittsburgh at all, or even was floated out there, is all you need to know that things are changing. Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, he needs to be done for his own. If you want to be able to. I think when you get to be a level like an Eli Manning or a Ben Roethlisberger, not a Peyton Manning or an Aaron Rodgers or a Brett Favre, they're in a different category. They can hang on a few couple years too long and play poorly at the end, and it's not going to change your perspective of them as a great quarterback because they were so great, an all-time great. If you're somebody like an Eli Manning or a Ben Roethlisberger who is a borderline Hall of Famer, and both of them will probably end up in the Hall of Fame because plain and simple, if you're a quarterback, you win multiple Super Bowls, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. It doesn't really matter what the stats are. So, but it is tainting the way you think of Ben Roethlisberger, just like it did taint the way you thought of Eli Manning, the way he played at the end of his career. Ben Roethlisberger is not playing at a high level. Things are going downhill a little bit in Pittsburgh. And so, I would like to see Ben go out on top, go out now before it gets worse. But at the same time, it's his life. He can do what he wants. And if he doesn't really care about those kinds of sports talk conversations, then who cares? Play another year if they'll have you.
Yeah, well, Father Time's undefeated, Ronnie. Everybody's got to hang it up sooner or later. We've seen it happen to, from Peyton Manning to Drew Brees. Somehow Brady keeps delaying Father Time, but no, it's time for him to go. Just like it was time for Brees to go. It was time for Peyton Manning to go when he went, Eli Manning, Brett Favre. We go down the list. Okay, so it's just that time. And then Mike Tomlin, I don't think he's leaving the Steelers anytime soon. I think he's just going to figure, hey, we'll rebuild this thing. We'll find another quarterback to build a team around. And the Steeler way has worked, since the early 70s with the Rooney family and the way they do things. So, yeah, it's time for Roethlisberger to go. You're right. It's going to change what some people think, but he's in the Hall of Fame because of 2 Super Bowls.
Getting back to what we were talking about in that division, Joe Burrow. This year, Joe Burrow has passed for almost 4,200 yards. Obviously, has 2 games left. 30 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. So a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is considered good. That's what you want at minimum. And has just coming off of the greatest game of his career. Where he had 2 receivers over 100 yards, over 80% completion percentage thrown. I mean, he looked like 2019 LSU in an NFL game against a pretty stout Ravens defense, and
he really did.
I mean, the game, it looked no different than what he did in college when he won the Heisman Trophy. I mean, that's the level that he's at right now. That's the level of comfortability is. The game has officially slowed down for him. It's fun to watch. It's just a shame being an LSU fan that he's playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, because that's probably one stadium I'll never go to. I'll never go to Cincinnati and freeze my ass off to go watch a game. I even looked at the fact that the Bengals play the Chiefs this weekend, Tommy, and it's going to be just an unbelievable game. Patrick Mahomes versus Joe Burrow, number 1 seed versus number 3 seed in the AFC. Cincinnati gets the Chiefs at home. It's really not going to even matter that much when it comes to the seeding, because the Chiefs are like 2 or 3 games ahead of the Bengals. And the Bengals don't really control their destiny ahead of them. Get the 2 seed, they got to win out and hope for help. So, but the game itself is just a matchup of 2 of the greatest, quarterbacks in the league, and 2 of the greatest quarterbacks that are going to be great for the next 10 years, barring injury. So it's just a great. And I even kind of just for fun looked. It's like, well, it's the day after New Year's. I got a flight credit. Let me look. I mean, there's just no easy way to get to Cincinnati. There's no direct flights from New Orleans. It takes forever to get there. It's super expensive. And then I'm going to go there, and then what? I'm going to freeze my ass off in the stadium. So that was a 5-minute conversation to have with myself, and I will be watching it from home like everybody else. But, man, I'm just excited for Joe Burrow. I'm excited for Jamar Chase. I'm excited for all the LSU players that just balled this weekend.
Well, by the way, the Chiefs are a 4.5-point favorite in Cincinnati. I just looked that up. Saints 7-point favorite against the Panthers next week. But anyway, the LSU, I saw a couple of things on Twitter, like, Devin White had 10 tackles, Patrick Queen had 10 tackles. I mean, Justin Jefferson broke Odell Beckham's record while Beckham was on the other sideline for most yards in the first 2 years in the NFL. Clyde Edwards-Helaire how he made that 1 touchdown run. There's not many people in the world that can do what he did on that touchdown run when he was hit in the backfield. Looked like he was down for a 2-3 yard loss, bounced around the left side for a touchdown. You throw in Joe Burrow and, some other guys that did good things as well. And it was kind of NFLSU was what everybody kept tweeting all over the place last night, and rightfully so. I mean, and like we talked about on Sports Choice Radio last night, it backs you up to realize just how damn good that 2019 team really, really was. I mean, wow, what a collection of football players who, like Derry said last night, not only are they in the NFL and on a roster, but they're putting up numbers and statistics and helping the team win like they helped LSU win 15 times that year.
Speaking of Odell Beckham Jr., he had another LSU alum. He had a touchdown catch. The Rams won the game. They beat the Minnesota Vikings.
Did you see that pass route he ran on that touchdown?
So good.
No, and I'm not a fan of Beckham. Never have been, never will be. But if you're a wide receiver, you're a young guy, or you're a coach at the high school level, you need to watch the discipline on that pass route that he shook wide open. I could have hit him with a pass. Right. You could have hit him with a pass. But that's one reason why he's had the success that he's had. That was unbelievable.
Well, he did. It was an unbelievable route. It was down near the goal line.
He turned the defensive back around like a fool in the end zone.
he ran like a double move. He broke to the outside, then he broke to the inside with his head and shoulder, and then he broke back to the outside and was wide open. And then he did he did Justin Jefferson's dance while Justin Jefferson was there. But the Rams, of course, they're the number one seed right now in the NFC. Matthew Stafford, he had a bad November, but he's righted the ship. 36 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. He's thrown for over 4,300 yards. Those are better numbers than Joe Burrow's numbers. So it gives you an idea of what kind of year he's had. He's got to be just so happy. I know he was he loved Detroit and the community loved him and all that kind of stuff. Did a lot of good, him and his wife in Detroit. But man, it's got to be like a breath of fresh air, not only literally to live in Los Angeles, but just the new stadium and all the weapons around him. And he's playing on a legitimate Super Bowl team where if he was still in Detroit, Tommy, he would literally be on the worst team in the NFL.
Well, it used to be a saying that in the NFL you needed to get hot around Thanksgiving and then carry that into the playoffs. Well, now with 17 games, you got to get hot at Christmas time and then carry that into the playoffs. And obviously Christmas was this past weekend. So people like the Bengals who are hot, the Rams, and look what the Chiefs did, look what the Cowboys did, the Packers the other day. If you're hot right now, I know there's a couple of teams that might be a notch above everybody, but come playoff time, wow, it could be a very exciting playoff time if we don't have any COVID problems. And I can't believe the NFL is making the Saints play tonight.
Right.
But, look at Bounty Gate. Look what they did Sean Payton a decade ago, whenever that was. But there's no way that they should be requiring the Saints to play that game tonight, but they are, and it's unfortunate, but Saints going to have to do the best they can. And you know what, Ronnie? I thought about after we talked last night. I still kind of liking the Saints for some crazy reason. And a lot of people are picking
crazy.
them. But what I started thinking, well, maybe the under, okay? How's Ian Book going to score points? And the Saints defense pretty – but the over-under is down to 37.
Right.
So, that's like, wait, so it might have to go with the Rants 13 theory. Just don't bet the game and go ahead and enjoy it and see if maybe the Saints can pull it out. But I've read, Ed Daniels has a piece at creditcitysports.com. He thinks the Saints are going to win straight up, and he cites all the reasons in his column. And I talked about that last night, but I haven't made a wager yet. I've been on fire, but I'll think of something this afternoon, or I might pull the Rants theory and just say, hey, no bet tonight.
Listen, I'd like for it to be a great story, Tommy, but okay, so the Saints have hung their hat on their defense. They don't have Demario Davis. They don't have Malcolm Jenkins. They don't have Granderson. On offense, they don't have Ramczyk. They don't have any of their quarterbacks. They don't have Harris, the kick returner, one of the few electric players on offense. You've got a quarterback making his first ever start. Yes, he is athletic. He's going to have to be because offensive line's, starting a bunch of people you need a roster for. I get it. I just don't see how. And look, Miami's not the most explosive offense in the world, so you might be able to hang close. Your defense is going to have to play unbelievable. But
Ronnie, if you look at the Dolphins, they've won 6 in a row, but 5 of those games against teams with very bad records.
Right.
Okay, and then. How many times have we seen a quarterback come in that nobody's seen before, and they have a really good game? Ian Book. There's no tape on him. Derry and I and you were talking about that last night. I don't know, man. I might have to put a small wager on the Saints on the money line plus $1.40.
I think. See, this is why I don't bet the Saints or LSU anymore. It's my new rule as of a few weeks ago because you're too emotionally invested.
I'm not emotionally invested. You are.
You're trying to figure out a way for the Saints to win, and I just don't see any way that they win. They're a 3-point dog at home. They don't have any players that you've heard of other than Kamara. It just doesn't make any sense. And, oh, by the way, the Dolphins have not beaten the strongest, but they've won 6 in a row in the NFL, and I don't care. Look, last year when the Saints went up and took on the Denver Broncos and they didn't have any of their quarterbacks, we were licking our chops. Well, that's kind of how the Dolphins are right now with the New Orleans Saints. But I do agree with you on this, that the NFL's got it out for the Saints. For whatever it is, there must have been Sean Payton, what was it? Bull Durham, the famous movie Bull Durham, right? When with Kevin Costner, when the player got ejected and they were, What did he say? Well, he must have called him a cocksucker, because that's the only thing that gets you just ejected for no reason. Sean Payton must have called Goodell that or something,
He probably did call it. I mean, after what he did to Peyton,
right. Clearly, they hate each other. They've had it out. They've told each other what they thought of each other because the NFL does not cut the New Orleans Saints any slack at all. Every chance they have to turn the knife, they do. And clearly, it's going to be that way forever with Goodell in office. I assume as long as Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton are running the show in New Orleans. NFL has had that because you're right. 21 players are out today for the New Orleans Saints.
Why not? No way they should make them play that game.
Yeah.
That's just, it doesn't make sense with the way they've done other things. And I know they changed everything, changed all the rules Thursday, and the testing protocols and all of that stuff. But I don't know. I think if this was the Green Bay Packers or the Chiefs, they wouldn't be playing tonight. Or the Buccaneers. I can make a list.
By the way, the Bucs won the division. I was shocked to find out that the Bucs hadn't won the NFC South since 2007. Tommy,
I was a little shocked that it was that. I knew it hadn't been lately, but I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, that was this has kind of been a division for the most part that's kind of rotated. Streaky. The Panthers are the team to beat for a couple of years and all that kind of stuff. A little surprised by all this, but LSU men's and women's basketball both rolling, both ranked, but we're finally going to really get into the meat and potatoes of the league for LSU basketball. The first 3 games are going to be super exciting. They've got Auburn on the road this Wednesday. Auburn's a top 20 team. That is one of the toughest places to play in the country. It's become that. Tommy, I heard tickets were going for $400, $500 for good seats for this game. Man. Big time sellout. Next week, LSU opens at home against Kentucky, and then they also play Tennessee. So, at home. So the first 3 games are fantastic. We're going to really find out about Will Wade's LSU basketball team. They've had kind of a cupcake schedule to this point. We'll really find out a lot about them over the first 3 games.
Well, they're one of 5 undefeated teams in the country, and those 3 games are going to give us a pretty good snapshot as to what we could expect going forward. It's exciting time for LSU basketball. The women have a non-conference tune-up later today, and then they'll begin SEC play. And, the SEC is very good in men's and women's basketball top to bottom. So it's going to be fun for basketball fans of LSU, both on the women's side and the men.
How about Kim Mulkey already has won more games this year than LSU women did all of last year?
Well, that was one of her goals. You remember when she had that press conference? Goal number 1 is to win more games than we won last year. Well, you can scratch that one off the list. I'm sure she's got some other goals posted in that locker room. I haven't been in there, obviously, but no. And there's nothing that she does that will surprise me at LSU when you look at what she's done from her days at Hammond High as a player all the way to right now.
You mentioned women's locker room and all that kind of stuff. It reminds me of a funny story. I worked for Leslie Visser, and Leslie Visser was the first female reporter ever to go into an NFL locker room. It's back in the early 80s or late 70s, early 80s, something like that. She was working for the Boston Globe. I think it was late 70s. And before that, the women had to stand in the parking lot or stand outside the locker room. And listen, when we say they go in the old days, when they went in the locker room, it was really the locker room. Guys had towels wrapped around their waist, or they had no towels, and they, because they were, it's the way of the world. Hey, you want to come in here? My house, you're gonna have to just deal with it. That was kind of the attitude in the beginning. Now, when nobody really goes in the locker room very much, it's more they herd you to a room, and then when they let everybody in the locker room pre-COVID. Guys are dressed and stuff, and but so Leslie goes into the locker room late 70s, early 80s. Burt Jones was the quarterback for the Baltimore Colts, and they were hosting the New England Patriots, and she was working for the Boston Globe, so she travels down by train or whatever from New England to Boston, Baltimore to cover the game, and this was just before she was allowed to go in the locker room. She still had to wait outside, so she's waiting in the parking lot The last person she needed to get was Burt Jones. So she literally waits by his car because she's got to get a couple quotes from him before she can turn in her article. And Burt, comes to the car, and there's Leslie Visser. And Leslie Visser was a cheerleader at Boston College, very attractive lady. She's in her early 20s at the time. So she's standing there, and she's got her, notepad, like her little reporter notepad and her pen or whatever. And she's standing there, and she goes, Mr. Jones, can I ask you something? And he just sees a pretty young looking girl with a pad and a pen and just assumes she's wanting an autograph. He grabs it and he says, who do I make the autograph out to? And she's like offended because she's a reporter for the Boston Globe. Excuse me, sir, I'm Leslie Visser. I'm a reporter for the Boston Globe. And he saw that she got rattled, and Burt says, hey, honey, don't get your panties in a wad. What do you got? I'll ask whatever you want. And so she asks her questions, and then he says, well, hey, why don't you put your number on there? We'll get you back up here down here for a game. But that's how different the world was, right. With going in the locker room and all that kind of stuff. That was just 40 years ago.
Well, I remember late 80s, early 90s going in the Saints locker room when the women first started coming in there. And, guys were walking over to the shower or out of the shower, no towel on, no nothing. And there were 3 or 4 ladies in there. And it was a little weird, different because it was different. It was like, wait a minute, really? Like, come on. But, that was kind of the thing back then, The funny locker story, Ronnie, when there was a couple of years when I was covering all the Saints games, and I'd always go in the visiting locker room because I could have talked to Jim Mora any time. So I always wanted to get the visiting coach or see the visiting team. Interesting contrast. The Giants came in to play the Saints when Dan Reeves was the coach. And every one of the players, they used to park that bus on the Smoothie King Center side of the dome. And the players actually had to walk the whole length of the field to get to the visiting locker room.
By the way, Tommy, they still do that.
All right, the Giants come in. Look, every guy in $1,000 Armani suit with the tie. I mean, got the briefcases. But it was unbelievable. And then like 2 weeks later, the Dolphins came in, flip-flops, cut off sweatpants, the Hawaii shirt that Marino had on, the flowered shirt. Don Shula was the coach. Just the way, the 2 different coaches had the difference. And then the famous great story, it was the 49ers. And Alan Risher asked me, he gave me a business card. He goes, go up to Steve Young. This is when Alan's son Chad was like 10, 11, 12 years old. He says, see if Steve will send a jersey to my son. So I get in a locker room, and Steve Young's in there, and he's got like a dress shirt on, not a tie or anything. And I'm like, hey, man, Steve, long story, but his business card, Alan Risher, is your teammate in Tampa. Want to know if maybe you can send a jersey to his son. And he goes, oh, yeah, how's Alan doing? I said, fine. And he took the business card from me. He stuffed it in his pocket. Still ain't got the jersey.
That surprised me. That surprised me at all.
But he did. He put it in his pocket. Now, I don't know how long it stayed in his pocket, but he did.
I was hoping it had a happy ending. He turned around and grabbed his jersey
and handed it to you. Steve Young jersey, some 25, 30 years later, whatever it is.
By the way, Devin Steve's late to the show because TK's thinking like you, Devin. He's taking the Saints tonight, +3. So
what about I don't Ronnie? How about a teaser? Saints +9, under 43. I did look at that. Obviously, I know the numbers, so I took a peek this morning.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
$10 will win you 26 or whatever, So.
Well, no. If you tease it,
no, that'd be a parlay. Teaser 10 would win you 9.
Right. Yeah. You'd have to take the Saints +3 and take the under 37 to on
that would get you 26 for 10.
Yeah, the teaser. Yeah, I like that bet better, but man. It's just such a strange game.
Ronnie, where are you watching the game tonight? I may have to be texting you.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
do you know where you're going to be tonight? I know your schedule's kind of busy.
I'll be at the Greystone, but I'll say this, Tommy, is that look at last night, the Washington Redskins. Okay, they got absolutely taken to the woodshed by the Dallas Cowboys. They were decimated by COVID. So I just think, man, just lay off of it. Just be a fan.
Gary Beckwith last night said, when you think the Saints are going to play really great, they don't. And when you think they're not going to play really good, they do. That's why they call it gambling, and that's why we really don't know. You got to go go to sportsbook at LaBerge or whatever you got to do and get it figured out and have some fun. Or take the Ronnie Rance way and don't bet and just sit there with your crown and diet and just enjoy the game.
Well, the thing is that I get it that the Saints fans are all excited because of what they did last week at Tampa, arguably the greatest defensive regular season performance ever. Top 10 in franchise history, top 5 in franchise history. The question is whether it's 1, 2, or 3. But this isn't the same team. That's the whole thing. Is that last week what they did was last week, but now it's a different team, and that part concerns me. Although they're back in the dome, and hopefully the dome will have a little magic. It hasn't this year, but hopefully it'll have a little magic. Tommy, tell us about Tremonti's.
Well, the only day they're open this week is Friday. They're catching up on some deer processing and whatnot. Some of the employees getting a break. They had a huge week last week, and they want to thank everybody that stopped by and got stuff for Christmas Eve and Christmas and all that good stuff. They'll be open this Friday, the 31st, if you need something for this weekend. And back a week from today, Monday, we'll be here Friday, tell you what they got going on. But Tremonti's Meat and Seafood, connect with them on Facebook and Instagram, on Jefferson Highway, right down the street from Parkview Baptist Church and School. Lots of good stuff here, a huge whiskey selection, liquor, wine, all the great Chairman's Reserve meats. Good meat ain't cheap, cheap meat ain't good. Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. That is coming Wednesday. I'll be over in Port Allen at Court Street Cafe. So we want you to make sure you stop by there as well.
All right, he's Tommy. I'm Ronnie. Have a great one, everybody. We'll talk to you Wednesday morning, 9 a.m., and we'll kind of talk a lot more about LSU and the big matchup with Auburn that night. We'll also recap the Saints and Dolphins.
Real quick, tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, 4 to 6 p.m., I will be filling in for Eric Asher on his New Orleans radio show on Nash 106.1 FM in New Orleans, 4 to 6. I'll be in the Crescent City, so give it a listen if you want. Gonna have some fun guests and all that stuff. Tomorrow I'll fill in for Eric Asher.
All right, TK, good luck on that, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday morning. Everybody out there, have a good one. You've been watching Sports Roach Daily, presented by